I want to show you guys a map of the Roman Empire at the time of Isus. So clearly, he was in Jerusalem, which was barely a part of the Roman Empire. It's I don't know what that empire is that's touching it. Clearly, there was a lot of Arab people. It was a lot of Samaritans. What we're really talking about is a church that was happening in this area initially, but clearly it stretched over to Italy, which is where Rome was, in the Roman Empire, like the old Roman Empire, before it moved to Byzantium, which is where the new Roman Empire ended up. Remember, like there's the first Roman Empire, and then Christianity happens during the old Roman Empire with Constantine, and then it gets moved to Byzantium, and it becomes Constantinople because Constantine. And a lot of the places in Jerusalem, the locations of holy sites were determined by Helen, Constantine's mother. A lot of the oldest texts from Christianity are from Egypt, and that's why they're in Coptic. So I think it gets confusing when you talk about what languages people write in, and apparently everyone was doing a lot of Greek stuff back in the Jerusalem days, and I think that is confusing for a lot of us because we don't know what language they say. Everyone says they spoke Aramaic, but they're all writing in Greek, and for us that's super confusing because I think they were probably pretty close with the Athenians. The Athenians clearly had shipbuilding technology. They fought with the navy during the Peloponnesian War 400 years earlier, the Second Peloponnesian War. So in verse 9, he's still back in Judea, and he was hiding from Judea before, remember, because the Pharisees were trying to kill him. And then he comes into town with a big ass posse full of people, of big buff dudes, and then he talks some shit in front of a crowd, and then he walks off and heals someone and pisses everyone off. So as he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? He doesn't really give you any other options, does he? He's like, who sinned? Either him or his parents. Clearly everything is the result of sin. There's no natural occurrence whatsoever apparently in this culture. Jesus answered, It was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was in order that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day, night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and applied the clay to his eyes and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. And so he went away and washed and came back saying, yeah, it doesn't say specifically what sickness he had. That's why I have that note if you're confused. The neighbors, therefore, and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, Is not this the one who used to sit and beg? Others were saying, This is he. Still others were saying, No, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the one. Therefore they were saying to him, How then were your eyes open? He answered, The man who is called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes, and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. So I went away and washed, and I received sight. And they said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisees him who was formerly blind. All right, so I'm going to stop there because we don't know what's wrong with them. Clearly, I think that we had technology to heal people, and everyone's like, and clearly the guy's been healed. They brought to the Pharisees him who was formerly blind, the religious leaders, the Jewish religious leaders that believed in the Messiah apparently in their cultural, in their tradition. They read the Hebrew Bible looking for the prophecies that somehow come into the New Testament. You don't know how that's a prophecy because Jesus cites Psalms. You're like, that was Psalms? All right, I'm going to keep going. I don't know where I was. 13, they brought to the Pharisees him who was formerly blind. Now it was the Sabbath, which is the holy day. You're not you will sin if you break the Sabbath in the Hebrew tradition. That's you don't stop on Sunday. But if you go to Jewish temple, there are people that will not use their cell phone. There are people that will never use electricity. There are people that get so crazy about the Sabbath. They will never break the Sabbath. And some of them get really weird about a lot. Some of the women, you can't touch them. Paul talks about women, you should probably not touch women, is Paul. Paul literally says that in Corinthians. But Apollo's gay and he like circumcises people for a living. Like that's Apollo's job. He like literally circumcises kids for a living. He's a rabbi, but he's a good rabbi. He's the best teacher, but he's gay, and he hears that his sins can be forgiven. So like he's kind of cool. Do I think Apollo actually got put to death? I think he ended up in Rome, hopefully, and like hopefully we were pretty cool in Rome. Like hopefully he could get off and once he got to Rome. I don't know. You never know. He probably died. Now was the Sabbath on the day when Jesus made the clay. Oh, he broke the Sabbath and opened his eyes. Again, therefore, the Pharisees also were asking him how he received his sight. And he said to them, he applied clay to my eyes, and I washed and I see. Therefore, some of the Pharisees were saying, this man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath. But others were saying, how can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And there was a division amongst them. So, like, people were disagreeing. Maybe you shouldn't have healed that guy, because, like, clearly the rabbi knows what he's doing, dude. Like, we will never get into heaven, like, if the rabbi says no. They said, therefore, to the blind man again, what do you say about him since he opened your eyes? And he said, he's a prophet, talking about Jesus. The Jews, therefore, did not believe of him that he had been blind and had received sight until they called the parents of the very one who had received the sight and questioned them, saying, is this your son, who you say was born blind? Then how does he now see? His parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but how he now sees, we do not know, and who opened his eyes, we do not know. And ask him, he is of age, he shall speak for himself. His parents said to this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess him to be Christ, which is the Messiah, he should be put out of the synagogue, like you'll get kicked out of the temple, which I don't know what that meant exactly, but like you do not want to get kicked out of the temple back then. Real quick, so why are they so afraid of him like healing a blind person? Because like there's a prophecy in the Hebrew Bible about him. All right, so we're on to 23. For this reason, his parents said, he is of age, ask him. For a second time, they called the man who had been blind and said to him, give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He therefore answered, whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that whereas I was blind, now I see. They said therefore to him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You do not want to become his disciples too, do you? And they reviled him and said, you are his disciples, and we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he is from. The man answered and said to them, well, here is an amazing thing, that you do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. So this is like the blind man that is like testifying for, like he's like saying, dude, like this guy, like I don't care where he's from, like he's like healing me. All right, 32. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered and said to him, you were born entirely in sins, and are you teaching us? And they put him out. Okay, I thought they were talking to Isus, and no, they were not. That's why I have the wrong note there. Sorry, don't listen to me. What happened is I was reading ahead to 10, and I was like trying to figure out where to start, and then that's when I hit that part, and I was like, whoa, they said that to him? Because Joseph, but like clearly they didn't say that to him, because they probably didn't even know that. They didn't know very much about him. So Zeus at that time was living like near Carthage. Well, no, near Athens. It sounds like. I was hanging out near Corinth a lot with a bunch of women, and we had our own thing, and we were like, we got to go save the Jewish people from their religion. This thing is a nightmare, but those people are going to kill Zeus. So we knew it. We sent Zeus there, and everyone in the Greek world, when they were reading the book, was hearing about Isus. And Apollo was the one writing, but like, maybe I should not listen to Apollo about everything. Clearly Zeus knows things about Apollo. Apollo's gay. We don't have to listen to Apollo.